Sorry. All right. Oh, there's Andrew. Okay. All right. All right, Brian, I think we can get going. We have quorum.
Excellent. And we are recording, right, Justin?
Yes, sir.
Great. Welcome everyone to the Northern Middlesex MPO meeting for Wednesday, February 24th. I am Brian Pounds from the MassDOT Office of Transportation Planning. I am representing Acting Secretary Jamie Tesler today. Just as a reminder, as I said, the meeting is being recorded. We are using the Zoom platform, so folks would like to make a comment later on the agenda. We do have an open forum for public comments that I ask you to please put your name in the chat box to state your name for the record, and also state your name for the record each time we're doing motions and things like that as well. So with that, Justin, you can go ahead and do the roll call.
Okay. Acting MassDOT Secretary and CEO Jamie Tesler.
Present.
Brian Pounds, friend. Okay. MassDOT Highway Division Administrator Jonathan Gulliver.
Yeah.
Is that Frank?
Yep. Can you hear me? Present?
Yes.
Okay.
NMMPO Chair Andrew Delaurier.
Here. Present.
Okay. City of Lowell Representative Dan Rourke. I don't see him. LRTA Chair Tom Baumel is not here. He let me know. LRTA MPO Representative Kevin O'Connor.
Present.
Okay. And in NMCOG MPO Representative Pat Wojcik.
Here.
Okay. Hey, Pat. Okay, that's the roll.
Great. Thank you, Justin. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Next on the agenda is the approval of the January 27th, 2021 Northern Middlesex MPO meeting minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved, Kevin O'Connor.
Thank you, Kevin. Is there a second?
Second, Pat Wojcik.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second from Pat. Please read the roll call.
Okay. Are there any questions on the minutes before we do roll call? Okay. Brian Pounds.
Yes.
Frank Szynski.
Yes.
Andrew Delaurier.
Abstain.
Kevin O'Connor.
Yes.
And Pat Wojcik.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Brian.
Okay, moving right along here. Agenda item number 3, status report on the TIP projects under design and construction. I believe this is District 4. Connie?
It is. So I do have a little bit change on this spreadsheet. The lighting in Andover and Tewksbury is actually about 6.4 million instead of 6.2 or 3, but it's still lower than the TIP cost, and it still has an add date of March 13th. Other than that, the traffic signs, yes, the bids were opened and the project was awarded. We're still waiting for a notice to proceed on the Route 3 traffic sign replacement from Burlington to Tingsboro. We're still watching Dunstable Main Street very carefully. It's at 100%, but there's a concern about whether it's actually going to be ready for this year or not. And Tewksbury 38 is, as we've talked about before, is over the TIP target, the TIP programmed amount by a couple $1 million. That's pretty much 2021. There aren't very many changes for any of the other projects that are programmed on the TIP. But if anybody has any particular questions about any projects, I'm happy to entertain those.
Thank you, Connie. Questions for District 4? Seeing and hearing none, I think we can move on to agenda item number 4, which is open forum opportunity for public comments from MPO members, community stakeholders, and the public. Are there any comments in general from MPO members first, before I ask if there are any additional comments from the community or the public?
Andrew?
Thanks, and hi, everyone. Andrew Deloyer, NMCOG Chair and Bill Record Board of Selectmen. I just was potentially impacting one of the projects on the tip for later on, and Bill Rick at the very least is we had a very successful project for Boston Road South. And obviously then we have a Boston Road North type project. Last night, the Bill Rick Planning Board passed a major project that affects the Bill Rick Mall, which doesn't exactly dovetail into that project, but is obviously a new thing going to be impacting some traffic signalization there on that particular state highway. So just thought I'd bring it up as a coming attraction that does have some impact to this committee's purview. Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrew. Any questions for Andrew?
This is Frank from District 4. Just keep us abreast of that project, and you'll need an access permit to make any modifications. So when the design starts advancing, would be interested in seeing that as early as possible.
Absolutely, Frank. I'll see what I can get Russell's up as soon as possible.
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Frank. So at this time, is there any other comments from the community or public? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 5, which is the federal fiscal year 21 to 25 tip updates. I believe I have a tip amendment to discuss and take potential action on today.
Yes, thank you, Brian. Okay, so this came across our desk this week. So we had to add it to the agenda. So on your screen is a summary of a proposed federal fiscal year 2021 to 2025 tip amendment number 1. And this involves several projects for the LRTA. And the overall gist is the LRTA has received federal 5339 grant awards for a few different projects. And that funding needs to be obligated this year. So as with any federal transportation dollars, we need to program them into the tip. So yeah, taking a look at the various projects. The first one, it's a new project being added to the tip in fiscal year 2021. It involves the purchase of automated passenger counters for each vehicle in the LRTA's fixed route fleet, which is around 50 vehicles, I believe. And so this project uses a combination of the 5307 and 5339 funding program. These being urbanized area funding programs and for bus facilities. And the total for this project is $300,000, with the federal portion being obligated in 2021 and the state match being made available in 2022. So the second project in this amendment, it involves a replacement of 5 fixed route bus lifts for the garage. And so currently this project is in federal fiscal year 2022. And the proposal here is to move the federal piece into 2021 using these 5339 funds that have been awarded to the LRTA. And so the cost for this project is actually decreased quite a bit from its current program. It's currently programmed at $800,000. It's now down to $300,000, and this is due to the type of lift that the LRTA plans to purchase. They're going for more of a stationary, kind of a stationary lift into more of a mobile one, and evidently the mobile ones are less expensive. And so the federal piece, we're going to move it from 2022 into 2021, while the state match remains in 2022. So the third project in this amendment is replacement of 4 cutaway vans for the fixed route fleet. And so just like the bus lifts, this project is currently in fiscal year 2022. We're going to plan to move it from 2022 into 2021 using the 5339 funds. And the state match for that is going to remain in 2022. And it's the same cost as what it is. It doesn't change. And the last piece involves the purchase of 2 buses to replace some hybrid buses. And this project's currently in 2023, and the proposal is to move it to 2021 using a combination of 5307 and 5339B funds. And with that, the costs have increased slightly. The current cost is about 1.1 million. It's now 1.49 million. So the federal piece is moving from 23 to 21. The state match is remaining in 2023. So that's kind of the summary of the amendment. Are there any questions? Or Ali from LRTA is here. She can answer any questions or any insight.
Thank you, Justin. And I do have a question for Ali, and I don't know, maybe Justin you would know, but it's probably better directed for Ali. So I'm still seeing the match, like all the costs line up to what I expect, but I'm still seeing the match in our system shown in federal fiscal year 21. So I'm just wondering if this is just a discrepancy between state fiscal year and federal fiscal year. It's certainly fine to do the match as Justin has presented it here, having it in a different year. I just want to make sure that, we have that shown correctly in the draft tip in our system.
Yeah, so the way that it's listed here with the state match in 22 and then the last project being in 23, that's the way that it should be. I think when it's in the description of the project, which you can't see here, that explains that.
Okay.
But we've talked to MassDOT and FTA about that as well.
Okay. So we can get that corrected on our end. I just wanted to clarify that because I was following what Justin was saying. The cost seemed right. I just wanted to make sure that we're showing the match where it's supposed to be. So
I was just wondering if that's a limitation of the Grants Plus program.
It's really not. Like I think we can do that. We've done it before. Because there, I mean, there are instances where the state match is in a different state fiscal year, so we keep the state match in shown in a different federal fiscal year. We've definitely, because they're trying to apply for the grant or get the grant in this federal fiscal year, but the match is coming in the next state fiscal year. So, but we'll look into it. I just wanted to make sure that we're showing that right.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions for Justin or Ali?
I have a question about the first project, the automated passenger counters. What is that going to provide? And talk a little bit about that.
Yep. So right now we have, again, as Justin said, our fixed route fleet is about 50 buses. So we have 6 that were purchased a number of years ago. And what that does is it counts the passengers on the bus, and where right now, just given the climate, with the pandemic and keeping social distancing, we want to be able to more closely monitor crowding on the buses as we go forward. So this technology will help us do that, and we're going to outfit the entire fleet. So again, we can just monitor crowding, monitor where people are getting on and off the bus and that. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Ali. Thanks, Pat. Any other questions before I ask for a motion? All right, seeing and hearing none. Is there a motion to release the amendment as proposed with the understanding that we'll get the state match presented in the backup materials as Justin has outlined here?
So Pat Wojcik, so moved.
Is there a
Kevin
second?
O'Connor, second.
Thank you, Kevin. Justin, please read the roll call.
Okay, Brian Pounds,
Yes.
Frank Szczynski,
Yes.
Andrew Deslauriers,
Yes.
Kevin O'Connor,
Yes.
and Pat Wojcik.
Yes.
Okay, passes. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone. Next on the agenda is the 22 to 26 tip development. Justin, is this you?
Yep, it's me.
All right, take it away.
All right. Brian, feel free to correct me on this state tables. I sort of took your table and made it into something I could understand a little better.
Okay.
So basically now we're in February, tip development still continuing. And this month we're going to talk about the funding for the projects for fiscal year 2022 to 26 and the recommendations of tip day, which was held in early this month. So first, let's talk about the financial information. So this table here, it includes basically federal apportionment for 22 through 26. It's projected, and because typically not all of that's obligated in 1 year, we take a look at using 91% of the apportionment to determine the proposed obligation authority. Then we go through each year, we do an annual redistribution of $50 million. The state requests that typically in August. So we add that to our obligation authority, get your total estimated funding available on the federal end. We're also repaying the accelerated bridge program. So you'll see $86 to $130 million being reduced from the total funding available. And that gives you basically, let's move this over, the total proposed funding available for tip, STIP activities. And if you compare it to the 2021 to 25 tip, which we're in, or the STIP, it's around 3% less. So that's the gist of this. We're getting about 3% less than what was proposed in our current tip. So this funding available is 580 to 587. This is broken into two different programs, the State Highway Division program and the funding for regional priorities, which is where we get our tip target funds. And that is split up among the different, let me move this out of the way so you can see. That's split up among the different regions, the different MPOs. And the Northern Middlesex region gets 3.9096% of that total. So you'll see here our federal apportionment, our state match, and our total target funding for the 22 to 26 tip. And you'll see here, there is no change when you compare the 2021 to 25 target funding projections, the current tip that we're in. And this is because, even though we're seeing a 3% drop, the regions are being held harmless for the first 4 years of the tip. So basically level funded for 2022 through 2025. And so then we add the 2026 onto the end of that. And you see it, you definitely see it being affected there where we get, around $260,000 less in 2026 than we had in 2025. So those are the regional targets. If there's any questions or anyone wants to add anything before we go on to the projects, we can do that.
Right. So Justin, I appreciate the level of detail you're showing here. This is typically something I do whenever we meet with the regions at our annual MassDOT and MARPA meeting. So we actually gave all of the RPAs what their projected targets were. Justin, if you could slide back to the left for a second. Yeah. So I know this can be very confusing, but so the 91% that Justin is referring to of the apportionment. So the apportionments we get obviously from whatever transportation legislation we have. The FAST Act ended at the end of federal fiscal year 20. So whenever we built the 21 to 25 STIP last year, we had to make assumptions of what those apportionments would be because we didn't have anything, right? We didn't have a legislation beyond that. So on average, our apportionment has increased by about 2.1% year over year. So we thought, that's a pretty reasonable assumption. Let's take 2.1% of the FAST Act apportionment, just add it up through 25. Well, once we got into, I want to say October and November, Congress extended the FAST Act, which meant that our apportionment was flat funded. So we actually didn't get a 2.1% increase, which is what we were assuming, which is a reasonable assumption. It was the exact same amount from 20. What that meant was whenever we were assuming the 91% limitation to that, it means that we can actually obligate less this year. So in order to be a little conservative with our projections, we took 2.1% from this year's apportionment forward. So that's the first difference. The apportionment difference projected for 22 to 26 is different than what we projected for 21 to 25. The 91% is not something that MassDOT controls. We do make a proposal of what we think the limitation should be to the division office, but that is dictated by Congress. There has been instances in the past where at one point, not so many years ago, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, we were assuming 93% because we were getting about 93% limitation of the apportionment to obligate every single year. But year over year, if you look at some of the trend lines of what our limitation is by Congress, it's been less and less. So the average of what we've actually gotten of that apportionment to actually obligate every year is about 91%. So that's how we arrived to that number. This year, this federal fiscal year, actually, it was 87%. So it was much less than what we assumed. And as you can see, Justin, if you scroll over to the regional priorities and where your targets are, we've held the regional targets harmless to any drops in that limitation. So the highway division programs are actually the ones taking the hit on any future projections. And even in this current federal fiscal year, that's the case as well. So when we assumed 91% of the apportionment and it came in 87, that 4% difference is being accommodated on the highway division program side and not
Right.
on the Northern Middlesex target side. The one exception to that is the out year, the very last year that what Justin is showing here, the 2026 number. And that's why that one is less, is because, well, of course, right now the region doesn't have any projects programmed at 26. So we actually took that projection across the board. So the statewide programs and the regional targets are actually sharing what that total projection is. So, and that's a lot. I just wanted to clarify a little bit more about what that 91%, how we actually arrived at those projections. And if anybody has any questions, you can certainly pose them to me and Justin too. Justin, you seem like you're an expert at this now.
I have to dumb it down for myself. So
No, I mean, I like the way you showed it side by side because when I showed it, I think I show it year top down columns. Whatever works for you better. And you can also see here too, the accelerated bridge program. This is our accelerated bridge program that we launched back in like 2011, 2012. So we're still paying back the federal government for what we borrowed from them. So that's what those are. So as you can see, like there's very large payments in the last, these are like the last 2 years we're gonna be paying them down in 26, 27. I think there's 25, 26 are like the biggest ones. 27, there's maybe 15 million left over. But that comes right off the top. So that of course affects what we have left over.
Right.
So, we get the apportionment, we assume a certain limitation, we took off the GANS payment, and that's what we have left to obligate. So, but this is excellent, Justin. I appreciate the level of detail. Any questions for Justin or me on this before we move on to other probably more exciting things to the board? All right, great. Go ahead, Justin.
Okay. All right. So now we're going to get into the recommendations of TIP Day. And TIP Day is basically a meeting between the region and the different MassDOT entities involved with each of these projects, right-of-way, environmental, the districts, project managers, and the like. Before I go on here, let me see if I can get in there. Over here toward the right is what we just talked about, our targets, our target funding allocation. I kept 2021 in there because we need to talk about 2021 here. Don't pay a whole lot of attention to the target remain at this point because these are just recommendations from the TIP day meeting, and we haven't done any kind of financial constraint with the projects as of yet, and that will come next month. So let's just get into projects. Over here towards the left, 2021, we talked about this a little bit earlier. Connie talked about this a little bit earlier. The Tewksbury Route 38 resurfacing project, it's gone up $2.2 million since what we have programmed in our current TIP. The recommendation from TIP Day basically wants to keep it, the recommendation was to keep it in 2021. I think there was just an issue with confirmation that there's no right of way, but it's in good shape to stay in 2021. And I believe the advertisement date is September 11th. The second project that is currently programmed in 2021 is improvements on Main Street in Dunstable. And the recommendation when we met was to move it from 2001 into 2022. And there were some issues with right-of-way. There were some issues with environmental submissions, Article 97, some ENFs. And so the recommendation was to move in 2022. But we are currently trying to work our best to keep it in 2021. I believe there were right-of-way comments that have come back in the last week, and 100% design has come in since we had our meeting in early February. So basically, the recommendation 2022. We're trying to keep it in 2021 because it does affect the rest of the TIP if it moves out. And just a note, if it does stay in 2021, there will be an issue with the Tewksbury project and the Dunstable project being higher than our regional target. And we'll have to deal with that at some point with an amendment or something, if that's the case. So moving on to 2022 projects, current 2022 projects. The improvements on Nashua Road and Drake, the recommendation was to keep it same year. Beaver Brook Road, bridge over Beaver Brook, recommend to stay in 2022, it's in good shape. And in Billerica, the rehab of Boston Road, Andrew talked about that a little bit. It's currently programmed in 2 years, over 2 years of the TIP in 2022 and 2023, and the recommendation was to keep it in those years. And 2024, we currently have the rehab of Boston Road in Westford. That's at 25% design. It's in good shape to remain in there, possibly even move up if there is room. But the recommendation is keep it in 2024. And 2025, currently the VFW Highway reconstruction in Lowell project. That is at, I believe it's 75% design, and it's in good shape for 2025. It could even move up into 2024 if there is an opportunity. And that leads us into our 2026, our new year. And we just went through a list of potential projects that could be put into 2026. In Lowell, we have a Lowell Connector reconstruction project between Thorndike Street and Gorham Street. And that is a possibility for 2026. I know the state is looking for some clarification on alternatives for this project, and wanted to talk to the city about that. In Billerica, the intersection improvements at Boston Road, Lexington Street, and Glad Valley Road. That's a good candidate for 2026 or even earlier if possible. It's at 25% design right now. and they're moving along with that project. It's in good shape. In Chelmsford, traffic signal installation at 110 and 495. I believe the issue was that the state was reviewing the need to progress with this project. I know it has community support, but I don't know how far along, because this is a state design project. It's on state right away. And I'm not sure how far along their the willingness to move along with this project is. And improvements on Chelmsford Street in Chelmsford. It's a newer project. It'll need to be, because of its cost, it'll need to be over 2 years of our target as well. It's a preliminary design right now. And we just had a new project come in Westford, Route 110 improvements between Powers Road and Minot's Corner. So that's a very early design. But the town, I mean, Westford has a good track record of advancing projects, and the recommendation was that it would be fine if it went into 2026. And the last project, I believe the city is reviewing this Church Street two-way conversion. I believe the city is internally discussing whether or not they want to move forward with the project. So we didn't really get into doing a recommendation for that at this point. So those are the target projects. Does anyone have any questions on those?
Question for Justin on the target projects. Again, we're not making any decisions about the tip today. Justin's gonna, come back next month and probably present, I don't know, Justin, scenario or two
There'll be a
for the
couple
MP right, for the MPO to consider. Of course, there is some flexibility here with the funding. One of the things that we can do is, we do have projects that are, if they're over the regional target, the federal regulations allow us to what we call AC, or advanced construction those projects over the target to the next subsequent year, which the Northern Middlesex MPO has done in the past. So if there are some effects for projects moving around, that is a tool that we have on the budgeting exercise. We don't have to fit the entire project cost in 1 year if it is over the target. So that does help us a little bit. But I think that obviously the difficult one here is federal fiscal year 21, because what we do with federal fiscal year 21 is going to affect the rest of the tip, of course. The Dunstable project has, had a lot of concerns at readiness day. And again, that's a snapshot in time. We did that, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And at that point we didn't have to revise right-of-way plans. There's Article 97 concerns, things like that. And as Justin was saying, there's been updates since then. So if that project stays on track to advertise this year, then we also have to address the Tewksbury project that has a cost increase. So and then you're looking at the regional target and there's not enough money to go around, right? So that's going to be part of Justin's scenarios next month. And of course we'll have continued conversations with District 4, making sure that we have the right cost for these projects and stuff as well, because again, what we do with 21 is going to affect the 22 to 26 program. So any questions for Justin or even District 4 on some of these projects from MPO members?
Hi, Brian, it's Frank, District 4. I just wanted a couple of points to note, comments. On the Tewksbury 38 resurfacing project, where we've identified the $2.2 million in NFA funding to make that up if we happen to get some good news on Dunstable and Dunstable can go. We've been working on a backup plan, and we would like to see the Dunstable project continue, and we are preparing the cost estimate to include an NFA item if needed. Obviously, if Dunstable goes off, we would still look probably to use the target funding, but that is something that we feel comfortable that we would be able to shift and add some NFA funding, as you mentioned.
Excellent. Thank you, Frank. And if I'm not mistaken, that is an in-house design project, right?
Yes, that's been District 4 in-house, and we have a good feeling on the cost estimate as it is today at 75%. We'll be getting comments, and if there are more additional costs, we'll certainly keep everyone abreast.
Great.
The other project I wanted to mention was the Chelmsford traffic signals, the 110 at 495. We are going to advance that project. Justin did a great job in summarizing the readiness discussions. And since then, Justin, we are going to make a design assignment to get a consultant on board. It was one of those projects that kept kind of getting lost in the shuffle with our in-house design. So we will have a consultant. We will be advancing that. We may revisit the scope, but I don't believe so. But I just want to make sure that you understood that that we're taking that action, and I would think that it may be able to even move up if we get going on it. It's not a super complicated project.
Yeah, this project has been around for a few years now, so it's good to hear there's some movement on it.
And in addition to the, just the regional targeting, Justin's listing the statewide projects we currently have funded too. As of right now, actually, our statewide program managers are filling out our statewide programs. And that should be completed within the next week and a half or so, in draft form at least, for presentation at the NPO next month. So, we will be able to see where these projects actually fall. We use the readiness day recommendations, but again, that's a snapshot in time. Sometimes, we recommend the project to remain in the year that it's programmed, and for some reason, one or another, like it gets moved to another year because of financial constraint, things like that. And then the other way around, sometimes we have an opportunity to move a project up, even though, we may make a recommendation a project stay the same year. So just another suite of projects to consider. Of course, the LRTA has their suite of projects as well. They're going to be developing their draft tip, and next month I anticipate a conversation about what they're looking at for 22 to 26, with that information being finalized in April for release for public comment as well. So there's more than just the regional target stuff here, but I just want to let you know that we're on track on the MassDOT side for developing the statewide programs, and that'll be discussed next month as well.
Yeah, and I was going to mention that there was only one issue with at tip day for projects outside of our targets, and that was the Pawtucket Falls Overlook project. I think there was a Chapter 91 issue with environmental, but we can have a discussion with the city to talk about that as well.
Yep. Sounds good. And of course, I would encourage, project proponents of regional target projects, Justin, to come to the NPO next month and discuss the status of their project and be available to answer questions should NPO members have them as well. Any other questions for Justin or even District 4 on the projects or readiness days or what we're planning to do over the course of the next month?
I had a question.
Jane?
I just wanted to know what the status of the right-of-way portion of the Route 38 project in Tewksbury, where that stands right now.
Frank?
Yes.
There was a question on the Tewksbury project in federal fiscal year 21, and the right-of-way process on that project and the status.
Yes, we're working to design around the right-of-way concerns. There's a couple ADA ramps that are outside the state layout that are meet standards, so that was shown on our plans as being outside the layout, so right-of-way picked up on that, so we've eliminated that work. And there was another section of sidewalk that we were proposing that is going to be eliminated just because we can't fit it within the right-of-way, but we certainly can go back and fill in that gap later. But it's not a connection to another sidewalk, so it's just we chose to avoid the right-of-way impacts. That's going to delay the project by 18 months. So the project design is going to have a no right-of-way certificate issued for it. So we don't have any issues or concerns with that.
Okay. All right. That's an update. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep.
We're very concerned in Tewksbury about making sure that this project doesn't get, change the scope at all. It's like the #1 thing in this town. Everybody is praying for this to get done. That the whole town, it's all we hear about. So I'm not even kidding. Every time I go to the grocery store. So I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Jane, we're well aware of that, and I know your DPW director contacted me last week as well about it, so I had filled him in as well. So, yep, we're confident on the project.
I am deeply appreciative, Frank. Thank you so much.
Yep, you're welcome.
Thanks, Jane. Thanks, Frank. Any other questions? Okay, so yeah, just you know, be on the lookout for meeting materials. Justin's got a little homework to do. Of course, we're gonna, you know, be in close coordination with him and District 4 on proposed scenarios. And as you know, as Frank had mentioned, keep a close eye on the costs on the Tewksbury project and come up with some solutions to how to make that project fiscally solvent so we deliver it this year. All right, Justin, I think we're ready to move on to the next agenda item, which is the federal fiscal year 2022 Unified Planning Work Program.
Okay. Let's see here. So we had a meeting on January 26th with MassDOT, and that's our annual MARPA meeting, and we received budget information and guidance for developing our next work program, which begins October 1st, runs through September 30th of 2022. And I just wanted to go over the financial information, which we use as our budget to do our work for the next fiscal year. So taking a look at the table at the top here, there are 3 columns basically outlining the state apportionment for regional planning activities. And these are called PL or planning funds. And so the federal apportionment for 2022 is projected to be just over $9.8 million. And similar to the TIP, the obligation authority was at 91%. And with the state match, it comes out to just over $11 million, which is about $70,000 less than our 2021 projections, which you see here, 11.26 to 11.1. And similar to how we determine the TIP funding, we determine the UPWP funding. And so it's approximately 0.6% less than 2021. So getting into how we do our regional allotment. So we take that 11.189 million and spread it out among the different MPOs based on an agreed upon formula. And you see in the first column here, 40% of that total goes evenly between the 10 MPOs. 30% is funding relative, based on the relative size of the MPO population. And you see Northern Middlesex gets 4.45% of that number, that 3 billion number, just under $150,000. And then 30% of that total is funding based on the relative size of the urbanized population in the region. And the Northern Middlesex region is mostly urban. So we get a little bit higher percentage of that pot there. So 156,000. So you add those up, and those are the regional PL funds. And so UPWP includes these PL funds, but it also includes transit funding, which is our 5303 program. And that's all combined and used as our UPWP budget. So the next 2 columns here is what we have for 2021, which is our current UPWP program, and the proposed for 2022. So you'll see there's a little bit of a drop. It's about $22,000 or so less as part of the 5303 apportionment. So you add that 5303 apportionment to the PL funds, and that gives you your total funding of what we will use to use as our budget for our next work program. And you see these last few columns This is the total funding that we had in 2021, 911,000. The total funding in our next UPWP is just under $885,000, and it's a decrease of about $27,000. And so this 884,990 is what we are going to use for our next work program. And so that's the number that we're going to use. And in the next month or so, we're going to assign our different activities, our different tasks that we do for the MPO. And next month we'll provide an overall preliminary budget to the MPO based on this number and the different tasks that we need to do. So if there's any questions, I can take it, or if anyone has any comments.
Thank you, Justin. Any questions for Justin on the planning funding for this year? And again, this is for the upcoming federal fiscal year 2022 that will start in October. So in the coming months, we will be discussing the planned projects that will go in the Unified Planning Work Program for Northern Middlesex, and have those deliberation at the MPO as well. Justin, I don't know if you do that alongside with your tip in April. Do you release the UPWP at the same time, or do you do that like the month after?
That kind of depends on how I feel. I'm shooting for alongside the tip this year. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, the tip cycle is incredibly important in that those are pretty hard deadlines for us Commonwealth wide, because the work that this board does is very crucial to the CIP process, because every single project that goes into the tip goes into our capital investment plan. So, once the MPOs all release their tips in April, we release the CIP in May. That includes all of those projects. So that's why like that deadline is pretty hard and fast. But the UPWP can actually go, a month later. We've said, to the regions, we would like to see the UPWP endorsed no later than June, which means that the region could release it in May. However, if they would like to release it earlier, if you've had those discussions already, with your municipalities and your advisory committees and things like that, and had that deliberation MPO, you certainly can release it alongside the tip in April. So
and we did it on the May-June schedule last year.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
It's kind of up in the air.
Great.
But we are seeing $27,000 less, and for us that's quite a bit. So it's gonna affect what we do.
Yeah, and as you pointed out, most of that is coming out of the transit funds of the apportionment. That's an actual apportionment we got from Congress. So again, it's a sort of a similar situation where we're trying to project what our apportionments are. And of course, if you scroll up at the top there, Justin, if you go left and scroll up a little bit, you could see for the that federal fiscal year 21 PL, we assumed that we were going to get 9.8 this year, and we actually got 9.6, right? But we didn't, we're certainly not going to, make the regions change their contracts or decrease their contract for that amount. We actually have some PL balances to cover that difference. So all of the regions contracts and the UPWPs are remaining whole this year. But next year, what we did, similar to the tip, is we took a 2.1% increase from that 9.6 number to arrive at the 9.8, right? Which if it was just federal highway dollars would be actually very close, to what we assumed last year. I mean, all over the Commonwealth, it's only, I don't know, what is that, Justin? Maybe it's $60,000-$70,000 difference Commonwealth wide in that number, right? So you can really see the difference down at the bottom is really the FTA number. And interestingly enough, last year when we were doing this, I gave the regions what I projected to be just a flat funded number because I didn't have the apportionment yet, and it ended up being much higher. So, we thought we were actually going to have less in the current federal fiscal year and ended up having more because the FTA number was higher. And again, that's dictated by Congress. These numbers are agreed upon formulas, and this is kind of how the number shakes out. But yes, to Justin's point, it is $27,000 less than what you have programmed this year.
Yeah, so regionally on the transit side, it's about 22,000 less.
Yeah, right. Yep.
So, and on the PL side, it's like 5. So
yeah,
the majority is in the transit side, but it's all combined now. So
Okay, any other questions for the UPWP financial summary? All right, so be on the lookout for UPWP development in the coming months and planned projects and programs for deliberation. So next item on the agenda is the agenda item number 8, which is Northern Middlesex Memorandum of Understanding update. Is that you again, Justin?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, so at last month's meeting, we talked about this, and I let everybody know that we had distributed a preliminary draft to LRTA staff, to MassDOT staff, to Federal Highway and FTA for their comments. And since then, we've received their comments and made edits and basically have developed a ready to go draft MOU document. And I want to go through it with everyone today. Let everyone know, what's included, and basically the goal of this is to finalize this document at next month's meeting. And I just want to let people see this and review it over the next few weeks, and hopefully they can give me any comments they have on this document by, say, mid-March, so I can finalize this version and present it to the MPO at next month's meeting for endorsement. So basically, this document's a formal agreement between the different major agencies of the MPO, and that includes Northern Middlesex Council of Governments, MassDOT, and the Lowell Regional Transit Authority. And the first section of this document basically outlines the agencies and the makeup of the membership of the MPO. It includes federal regulations, a discussion of when the original MOU was signed, and the requirements that the MPO membership carry out the transportation planning process. So, and you see there's the different regulations and everything. This list here is basically the representatives of the MPO voting members. So we have that in there. We have a discussion on the number of signatories for each document, each certification document that needs to be signed. Ours is a little different because we have 7 voting members, but 6 signatories, and this is because it was decided that the MassDOT secretary would be signing for both of the MassDOT members of the MPO. We also added how each member of the MPO is elected to the board. So the NMCOG chair and the MPO representatives, they serve a term of 1 year, and they're elected by majority vote of the NMCOG council. And this is just an outline of how each, just the process of how each NMCOG member, the voting process goes. And we talk about, we've added a section here on the LRTA, how they elect their chair and how the chair appoints the MPO representative from their advisory board member. Let's see, anything new? And then we talk about responsibilities of each of the organizations. In general, it talks about development of the MPO certification documents, including the TIP and the UPWP and our long range plan. It talks about our development of our annual obligation report, which we do in December each year. It talks about our Title VI work, our public participation plan, and all of the performance measure work that we've been doing and approving lately. And then we get into each of the responsibilities of each of the different individual agencies, how MassDOT is responsible for the conduct of the meetings and reporting policies and providing federal and state transportation funds to the NPO. How NMCOG serves as the technical staff to the NPO, and they're responsible for maintenance of the transportation planning process. And then it outlines responsibilities of the LRTA, including financial information on transit projects and providing federal obligations listings to the NPO as well as part of that annual obligations report. And I'd like, if people have things to add to these responsibilities, please let me know over the next few weeks. And then we go into the MOU review and execution of the document, and it states that the NPO will review this document at least every 4 years. The last review of this document was in 2011, so we're definitely overdue. And we kind of tied it in with our long-range transportation plan cycle. So when we develop our UPWP and discuss how the year that we are endorsing our next long-range transportation plan, we will have a review of the MOU in that year as well. So kind of just keeps us keeps it tied in together. So we have like something to just tell us when we need to be updating this document. So I believe that is it for everything that is in the document. If anyone has any questions or additions they want to talk about, Federal Highways here.
Any questions from Justin or anything that Federal Highway would like to add?
No, just appreciate walking through. I know, Justin, you addressed a lot of or all of our comments, FTA and Federal Highway, so I appreciate that. It looks great. So
Thanks,
far, I'll
Chris.
take another look.
Thanks, Chris.
Thanks.
Yeah, Justin, what's the timeline for when you need feedback from members on this?
Next 2 weeks, I'm gonna say probably March 12th would be a good time to have everything in.
Okay, sounds good. So yeah, members just be on the lookout. Justin, well, you've already got this posted, right? So it's there for MPO members to review, and they can give feedback now, anytime between now and March 12th. And then after that, we'll be bringing this to the MPO for a vote to endorse the new MOU. And then, we will be signing Jamie Tesler, Acting Secretary Jamie Tesler, either him or David Mueller, the Executive Director of Office of Transportation Planning, will be signing on his behalf to endorse the new MOU. So any questions for Justin?
Brian, this is Chris again. No questions. Yep. And I can't recall if you mentioned this already, Justin, but this is also related to the recent certification review finding. It was noted as a corrective action. So after this is endorsed, then we can kind of produce a final kind of certification letter that we'll transmit. So
excellent.
So mention that too.
Yep. Thank you, Chris. All right. The next item on the agenda is other business. Any other business from MPO members today?
I'm not an MPO member, but I do have one item.
Okay, go ahead, Bev.
So last night, MassDOT made a presentation to the Lowell City Council on the Rock Bridge project. And during that presentation, there was discussion about the need to program that project within the TIP. And MassDOT is going to be apparently doing this project as a design build project. And their time frame is pretty ambitious with work starting in the next couple of years, it was basically pointed out that this would need to be on the TIP. However, there's not really an identified source of construction funding beyond the concept of design build. So I'm wondering if any thought is being given at MassDOT in terms of how we're supposed to address this in our TIP and how this plays into the CIP.
Right. So I can take a crack at answering that, Beverly. I know, right now, as I mentioned earlier, we're in the process of developing our statewide program lists. I've had conversation with our bridge unit. I don't know, where this fits into the federal aid program. This might also be something that fits into the non-federal aid side of things as well. And that's more for the bridge engineering side of things. But I definitely want to circle back with our director of asset management and our bridge director to make sure that they're aware of what is being said at the public meetings and stuff. And I don't know if Frank has anything additional to add. But I guess the next step there is to keep an eye on the statewide lists that are coming out. We're in the process of developing them right now, and those will be brought to the MPO next month. So anything that obviously is in the statewide list goes into the CIP. So Frank, I don't know if you have any other updates other than that, but that's the only thing I have for that.
Brian, no, I really don't. I mean, the price tag right now is estimated between 130 and 142 million. So
Mm-hmm.
I know there was a line item in the transportation bond bill for 100 million, but that needs to be fully vetted and that's not set in stone. So again, I don't think
Right.
any discussions that I've been involved with about how this is going to get programmed.
Yeah, that's a good point. So the bond bill, what's in the bond bill is authorization, right? So it actually authorizes us to obligate the dollars. It's not actual money that's set aside, right? So whenever we go through the bond bill process, we're looking at what our future projections are, projects that are already in design, which of course this project is, right? Like we're designing it in order to be implemented. So whenever we went through the process of doing the bond bill, we made sure that the authorization was set aside for the project. So Frank's point is right. Like it's there whenever we actually need to obligate the dollars.
Well, it would be really helpful to me if MassDOT had a strategy for this, because I felt a bit put on the spot last night at the city council meeting when a question was raised by a councilor in terms of, how to move this along quickly. And he was told that they need to work with NMCOG to get this on the tip. And I really could not respond in any reasonable fashion as to what the likelihood is of getting it on the tip in this cycle, or whether it would, to your point, if it's non-federal aid, it doesn't necessarily have to go on the tip, whether that was even a requirement. But the city council was certainly led to believe that it was a requirement, and that, we are the people that they need to work with to make that happen, which, as you know, the bridge program is totally out of our control for one thing.
Right. Yeah.
And MassDOT calls all the shots there. So there needs to be sort of a clear message.
I'll take a shot of interpreting what, I don't know who presented it or anything. I'll take a shot at what I think they meant. I think anything that goes in our statewide program obviously needs to be voted on and vetted by the MPO, right? Like that's how I'm interpreting that. I'm not interpreting that as we expect, Northern Middlesex to spend their regional target dollars, of which they have about 10 million a year to implement a road bridge project, right? So I think and again, like I'm guessing at what that meant, but I think that's what that means is, whenever we're going to, iron out when an advertisement date is, we have to put that in our statewide program. That has to go through the MPO process, right? It has to be on the Northern Middlesex tip in the statewide program. Any other business from members at this time? I know Schuster has an update, I believe, on shared streets. Seeing none, go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, so the Shared Winter Streets and Spaces grant program that MassDOT's administered in recent months has its fourth and final funding round for municipalities with a deadline that was initially this Friday, but now the deadline's been extended a week to next Friday, March 5th. So if there's any municipalities in the Northern Middlesex region that would like to apply for that grant, you have until Friday to do so. I believe at least a municipality or two in your region have been awarded the grant, and we know it's one of the one of the lifelines that's been thrown around the state amid the pandemic, and we've seen some really cool small projects happen and come to fruition across the Commonwealth. So it's worth looking into if your community hasn't looked at it already.
Yeah, and I'll say the same thing that I said at the Merrimack Valley meeting today, which is this has been a really popular and successful program. And, I really appreciate, I know I speak on behalf of all the people who are working on this program and other folks at MassDOT, that we appreciate the participation of the region and municipalities in this. And it's been great to fund things that are, kind of cool and actually have some longevity to them. We're hoping that some of these things become permanent. And we were really happy to partner with municipalities and businesses on this. So just thank everyone for your participation, and looking forward to the applications that are coming in this cycle. Any other business today? All right, seeing none. Justin, when are we meeting next?
We are meeting on March 24th, 2 p.m. right here
March 24th, 2 p.m.
on your computers.
Same time, same channel. On that note, you should anticipate that we're meeting virtually, of course, for the foreseeable future. I know MassDOT, our teleworking policy right now has been extended through at least June. So, those of us like myself and Derek, who have been working 100% teleworking remotely, we will continue to be doing that through at least June. Other folks that have been doing partial, they'll continue to do the same thing too. And I, think the administration is going to reevaluate as we get closer to that time period. Of course, there's a lot of things happening with the vaccines and things like that. Hopefully things go well. We're looking forward to doing this in person again, but I just want to set the expectations that for the cycle, everybody should expect that we're going to be doing this virtually. So, all right, great. With that, I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Wojcik, so moved.
Second, Kevin O'Connor.
Thank you, Pat and Kevin. Any objections? All right, seeing no objections, we will see you next month to discuss the TIP programming. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks.